Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button and give this episode a thumbs up. Kody Brown, the patriarch of Sister Wives, has made it clear that he is beginning to push Robyn Brown out of that part of his life in order to make space for his own desires. He explained that his relationships with his sole, still married wife and his elder children are now rather distinct. As the father of 18 kids, Kody has had a hard time with the majority of them. The patriarch's situation now appears to be on the mend. Despite having made some of the early portions of Sister Wives Season 19 out of claiming he was healing relations with his children, when in fact, he wasn't, Kody has been trying his best to keep Robyn in the loop about his encounters with his children. Despite the fact that it appears his divorces from Christine Brown, Janelle Brown, and Mary Brown have impacted the way his children perceive him being his sole remaining wife. Robyn has learned from Kody about the difficulties he has encountered while attempting to reconnect with his children, though. He has also been frank about how challenging the children struggle to keep Robyn engaged in that process. Although Kody's actions have not always been perfect, both Kody and the children have tried to maintain closeness. Robyn has leveraged this behavior to ensure that Kody is even more concentrated on her than he is on any of his previous marriages, kids, or other obligations without Robyn in attendance. Kody ran into a couple of his grown children. His wife had nothing to do with it during a recent Sister Wives Season 19 episode. Kody informed Robyn that he had spent time with his daughter, Christine Brown Aspen Thompson, and that some of his other children had visited as well. Even the more visibility with his children was a welcome surprise. The ensuing conversation didn't feel like their usual dynamic. Kody still has a strained relationship with his kids, but since divorcing their moms, things have only been more complicated now. He interacts more with Robyn's kids than with any of the others. Kody explained that he and the children had talked about their relationships and what they desired in the future. Robyn, who wasn't present, maintained it sounded more like an argument. Although Robyn couldn't see it for herself, Kody explained that he had heard the concerns of the children about how he acted. They had come to a sort of standstill in their relationship. Despite some improvement, Robyn appeared to want to hear what Kody had to say. But it was clear she was threatened by his increasing attachments to his children whenever Robyn is present. Kody loses sight of his children, becoming excessively fixated on Robyn's needs, even though it was a good thing that Kody went to see his children without Robyn being there. In time, it's pretty obvious that when she is there, Kody's true concern is always her, even though he realizes he has 18 children, each of whom requires him in various ways. Kody tends to treat Robyn more like a wife than he treats his children because the start of their marriage, Robyn has exploited this trend. Ensuring Kody maintains his focus on her rather than on his previous marriages, children, or obligations when Robyn is not around, things appear to go more smoothly for Kody. She has a tendency to complicate things. It's increasingly apparent that Kody has been attempting to eliminate Robyn from his children's lives over the last few years. Despite Robyn's continued attempts to remain involved, Kody appears to have decided to concentrate more on developing relationships with his children that don't include his wife. After seeing how Robyn's presence, typically negative, has affected his children, Kody appears to be demonstrating some self-awareness by putting his kids ahead of his wife. Finally, the Sister Wives star may be starting to grow up Sister Wives. Kody Brown has also weighed in on the likelihood of adding more wives. Sister Wives star and former polygamous patriarch Kody Brown lives monogamously today. But could he ever bring on new wives again? At his high point, Kody was married to 4 wives and had 18 children when Christine Brown, his third wife, divorced him in 2021. It set off a series of splits. 3 of Kody's 4 wives left the marriage and the polygamous household for good. Within 14 months, Kody's troubled divorces certainly soured his attitude toward polygamy. But that doesn't mean he's eliminated marriage from his options. By the time Sister Wives Season 19 premiered, Kody was living monogamously with Robyn Brown. His 4th and youngest wife, ironically, Robyn, who had always dreamed of living in a polygamous home, resented the new setup in a stroke of irony. Her very presence might have been what finally resulted in The trigger for the family's eventual split could have been Robyn's arrival. Kody was pursuing Robyn actively when Sister Wives initially premiered in 2010. Relationship dynamics shifted, resentments were fostered, and things were never the same again after she and her 3 children from her previous marriage joined the Brown family. Will Robyn and Kody introduce more wives into the mix? Kody and Robyn initially married due to their lifestyle choice now. Robyn's fear of plural marriage is a lot stronger. Robyn had always understood that marrying Kody would mean becoming part of an already big family when she met them. The Browns were a big, happy family living together in a compound in Utah during season 1 of Sister Wives. Watching their happiness, Robyn wanted the same type of life for her children and herself. Ultimately, she and Kody had 2 biological kids together. After Kody legally adopted Robyn's 3 children from her first marriage, tragedy intervened in the form of reality and destroyed Robyn's fantasy polygamous family. Even though she had always dreamed of living in a polygamous home, Robyn's experiences during the last couple of years have made her much less tolerant of that way of life in a new Sister Wives season. 19 episode, Robyn opened up about feeling about potentially bringing home a second wife. The 5-time mom conceded that what occurred for her family has left her extremely fearful of plural marriage. These days, she clarified that she would have to feel highly safe in her relationship with whatever future sister wife because there's a lot of trauma there. Will Robyn and Kody bring home additional wives? Considering all that has transpired, the likelihood seems remote. Kody and Robyn discussed their ideas about polygamy during a 19th episode of Sister Wives. When Robyn asked Kody if he missed being part of a polygamous family, Kody provided a straightforward response. "I don't want to be glib because we were committed to this, but I'm not interested in plural marriage anymore," Kody said later, addressing the cameras. Kody said, "I don't want to chase another woman because I don't want that headache. The questions, the struggles, the wondering about trust, I'm just not in that space." Since separating from Kody, his 3 ex-wives have progressed with their lives. Kody was careful to make it clear that he didn't regret having a big family. Although Kody was extremely close to his kids when they were children, now he hardly ever speaks with many of his older kids, the Sister Wives season 19 star. He said he couldn't deny his children were a blessing, though. When Kody married Robyn, many of his older children began resenting him, saying they'd been mistreated. Kody has dozens of kids now married, or in committed partnerships. None have chosen polygamy. None of them have taken multiple mates as spouses. Are any of Kody's old wives thinking about getting back into polygamy? It is unlikely, because all of them went through trauma of being in plural marriages since Kody left. His 3 former wives have all moved on with their lives. Christine Brown got married to David Woolley, and their marriage is strictly monogamous with no plans of increasing. Mary Brown, Kody's former first wife, is still single and now searching for a life partner. As for Kody's ex-wife, Janelle Brown, she's concluded she doesn't want to date at all these days, much less re-enter a polygamous relationship. All of the cast members of Sister Wives have all shared in the suffering that polygamy used to cause. Robyn and Kody, a tough woman, found herself standing at a crossroads after closing the door on a decades-long chapter of her life. After leaving behind a spiritually rooted marriage that once shaped her reality, she set out to forge a new existence, one greatly different from her past's dark shadow. Her new path led her to the green, rich fields of a southeastern state, rich in agricultural heritage and easy ways. A long way from the iconic vistas of the American Southwest, buying a big, expansive tract of land in a rural, close-knit town created a lot of interest and questions. This tract of land represented her biggest endeavor to date. Green, vast, full of potential. But it was more than being the owner of land or a piece of property. It was building a new identity, separate from the confinements and demands of what had come before, in order to represent her aspiration to make something enduring, sustaining, and truly genuine. She titled her venture TA Farms, a moniker that conveys visions of resilience and a sense of unity with nature. Even though this was not her initial significant monetary investment, It was certainly the most personal for years. She had existed in a blended family setting where money was pooled and individual wants were compromised for the needs of the collective. She had invested time, money, and energy into projects that seldom represented her own aspirations now. For the first time, she was free to decide for herself without being restricted by the views of others. She diverted her energy toward her own desires. Her old home had been an ongoing balance of personal sacrifice and emotional fidelity, of family politics and private self. Her erstwhile devoted husband had been gradually distancing himself from her and from their children as well, even with her own devoted efforts. They were disregarded because he became progressively engrossed in a new young partner. The imbalance eventually became too much to bear. The departure of yet another woman from the family was a wake-up call. It showed her other options. Exiting wasn't failure, it was liberation. An opportunity to pursue long-lost dreams. Following the breakup, she moved to a small but promising town near where one of her children had already made a home. Provision by her nearby family gave emotional comfort. But the peaceful character of the town granted her much-desired privacy. Here lay where her second act would emerge. On the pasture-drenched land, wooded landscape, and garden soil, abundant soil, alongside assistance from her daughter and son-in-law, she stepped into the hard task of initiating a wellness-inspired floral and lifestyle farm. Tata Farms was never intended to be just lines of gorgeous flowers. It was conceived as a haven where individuals would be able to reconnect with nature, heal, and create a sense of community. She invited visitors to view her website and social media, encouraging them to experience the rich colors, textures, and aromas that promoted healing along with floral encounters. She sold lifestyle goods, kitchen essentials, wearable technology, and soul care books, all selected to merge beauty and utility. Yet opening this business was not easy. Despite her fierce heart, she didn't have genuine farm experience. Her skills had always been in family leadership, emotional strength, and tenacity, not in horticulture or farm work. Planting her very first seeds, literally and figuratively, entailed growing pains. She encountered significant learning curves in areas of seasonal planning, soil care, and irrigation systems. Her website's narrative attempted to define her vision, but some visitors were lost. Potential buyers weren't certain if they were seeing a lifestyle. Was it a lifestyle company, a retreat, a working farm, or all three? She was financially balancing on a tightrope. Buying the land had been expensive, and her savings promptly fell away under the brunt of branding, marketing, and product development costs. Some of her money came from the sale of a family landholding, a property that had once represented a coming together, but had, over time, become a source of constant conflict. Years of arguments and talks over the land preceded its eventual sale. When it was sold, she was given a sizable payment, sufficient to sow the seeds of her aspiration, perhaps not enough to keep it going in the long term. Without careful planning, with something of her own for the first time, she needed to walk a tightrope between developing her company and keeping her financial security intact. Friends and supporters, though they admired her courage, were concerned about the future of the farm. Was she putting too much trust in something that was still in its early stages? Would the company flourish, or would it ultimately sap her energy and resources as past sacrifices had? Concerns also existed about her new partnership with family. Working with loved ones was comforting and familiar, but it also came with risks. Possible conflicts could be on the horizon for the time being. Her daughter and son-in-law put time, effort, and vision into it along with her, and everything went well. But as the farm grew, questions about leadership, sharing income, and each person's role would inevitably arise. Having gone through financial instability in the past, the woman craved certainty this time. Intent on maintaining her independence and keeping the spirit of her dream alive. But she pressed on. Every day presented new challenges. Abrupt changes in the weather, supply chain glitches, and the constant work of establishing trust with an online customer base. But little victories kept her spirits up. A healthy patch of flowers, a warm note on her website, a neighbor thanking the farm for offering a quiet sanctuary and peace at dusk. where the sun glows behind rolling fields of purple and yellow, and in the wildflower-scented lavender, she regularly paused to remind herself how much progress she made. Her troubled history hadn't destroyed her. It had created her the lady who remained wordless, would speak freely today. The one person who gave so much investment to others' futures was today, for the first time ever, finally injecting life into hers. She wasn't merely a mother of numerous, no longer merely a mother or ex-wife, but an entrepreneur, a visionary, and a property owner. And welcoming the doubtful future with wide arms, the farm was something more than business. It was the start of a legacy, a place she could at long last reach towards the light, where loveliness sprang not only from the earth, but from her very self, while his former commanding figure now wrestled through a horribly fragmented personal existence within the constantly changing realm of what used to be an intricately tapestried polygamous clan. The husband who had held a place as focal point of a number of decades-long marriages had come increasingly out of touch with a majority of children produced by said unions, preferencing instead the company he shared. Now his relationship with the woman who had stayed true at his side had drawn a clear line between past and present, a line whose implications were arising in agonizing and frequently heartbreakingly different ways, raised in a world based on mutual love and shared sacrifice. His children had quietly but inexorably wandered away from the man they had once held in such reverence for years. Tension had been silently simmering just beneath the surface, an emotional undertow that gained momentum with each succeeding season. Quiet disappointment developed into resentment. Resentment cooled into tense interchanges, until finally, little communication existed at all. And yet, for all of that, the man held on to the comfort and security he felt in his closest friend. Appearing reluctant to face the brunt of the damage inflicted throughout a good part of the current season, the patriarch showed publicly his intention to heal ancient hurts and rejoin with his children. He mentioned visits, open heart talk, candor, yet in private rooms. His intimate companions questioned his commitment, his gestures too quickly reduced to their material aspects before taking on life, and even those rarely being proportionate to the moment. Still, however, the woman at his side was deeply interested in how these family dynamics went down. Not necessarily out of sheer love of the children, but maybe because keeping her in the center of his universe mattered most the others, especially those who view her more as a figure of division than of unity have not universally embraced her presence in his efforts at reconciliation. The old wounds of the past are starkly revealed whenever the discussions between the father and his children grow more strained in her presence, or even at the mention of her name. But then, quite recently, something changed, a small but significant shift. A development that might portend a different future on a visit initially intended for one daughter. A couple of other adult children arrived unexpectedly, causing an unplanned reunion. And, for the first time in years, a possibility for an honest conversation, this meeting wasn't stage-managed by the woman he now lives with, nor was it tainted by her presence in those sensitive interactions. The father found himself being honest with those who had previously been nearest to him. And for a brief moment, a tentative understanding emerged. Not all wounds were closed. Not all wrongs were forgotten. But they spoke, they heard, and in their voices, there was at last more longing than rage. The children, guarded but willing, shared their views, while the father provided what truths he could of his own life in these moments. The old patterns, the wounds, the allegiances, the splits, dropped away. It was only father and children again, together in a clearing unscarred by ancient conflicts when he came home and told about the trip. His friend heard him, but the look of interest in her eyes was eventually replaced with something else. A desire for control rather than for comprehension. She challenged his version, gently proposing that what he recognized as advancement could well have been confrontation in disguise. Her insistence on retelling the tale spoke of greater unease, a discomfort with any story in which she was not at the center yet, this time. He stood firm. He would not allow her to distort the emotional reality of the encounter. This tension was not new. It had always been noted that in her presence, his focus would fold inward, riveted solely on her needs, her comforts, her perceptions, as if the web of relationships that once supported him, with children, with previous partners, with family, easily dissolved when she was nearby the larger family. In the background, the children had witnessed this pattern many times before and had adjusted their expectations accordingly. When she was around, the man they once went to for guidance seemed different, and it was clear. But without her presence, he seemed to recall the chaos, the laughter, the duties of fatherhood that had once provided structure and meaning to his life. In these moments, he was able to see his children not as reminders or symbols of conflict, but as people, each with a piece of history forever bound up with his own. There was clarity in those moments, there was purpose, and perhaps, just perhaps, there was hope. He appeared to be leaning into these times more frequently now. Slowly but surely, he was starting to create spaces free from her influence. Yet all the while, he was still bound to the woman who had insidiously but continually defined the story they lived. Still, subtle acts of rebellion started to emerge. He no longer required her to attend every meeting, no longer included her in every call, no longer let her taint every interaction. He was giving himself and his children the opportunity to reconnect on their own terms. But this change was not missed. His present lover, sensitive to even the smallest changes, reacted with silent, calculated defiance. She would bring up old hurts, reignite memories of slight, cast suspicion on the motives of the children, presenting their renewed contact as opportunistic, not heartfelt. But something inside him had changed. He no longer took her version for granted. He viewed it now for what it was, one account, not the only truth. And as he went on rebuilding tenuous bridges with his children, it became apparent that he was no longer trying to please everyone. An impossible balancing act he had been performing for years, losing himself in pieces with every guarded step. Now, through these halting, loving interactions, he was remaking himself.